Fuck you.
That's how you do it?
From wastelanding hoarders that have a fine ear for classical swing tunes, to Vikings that devour cheese wheels whole and fuck dragons. Welcome all you beautiful ladies and animals, as today I compare some of the most popular and recognizable faces across the Bethesda RPGs with the grimdark universe of Warhammer 40k. Now, like with a lot of these other videos, Warhammer is kind of the constant, so I'm not going to go super deep on the explanations of things Warhammer-wise outside of the context needed for them in the video. And for the other side, we'll be getting into them a bit briefly before comparing these forthrightfully. Now yes, right out of the gate, none of these characters have the kind of insanity that Ben 10 or Doctor Who or Popeye that would see them dominating the Warhammer universe, so instead we're taking a handful of specific Warhammer analogs and comparing them to the protagonists. The Dragonborn of Skyrim, eating the souls of dying beasts and shouting horses off the mountains. The sole survivor of the Commonwealth, hoarding duct tape and turning settlers into slaves. And the Starborn. Before we get started, if you like this and want even more, be sure to like the video or subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything else. And if you want to keep the conversation going, there's also a Discord link down in the description that you can join for free and chat with all sorts of like-minded nerds. First off, I want to set a general guideline for us. As all of the protagonists are characters in video games, they are unilaterally overpowered. Now, we're going to go with the Warhammer route of choosing the line between embellishment and realism. Because no matter how many game logics you stack up, I don't think Nate is tanking mini-nukes to the face, even if you can in-game. As a general middle ground, we're going to be using what these characters defeat as a general comparison, but still continue with the understanding that someone like the Sole Survivor, while deadly, charming, and a fantastic shot, is still human. But with that, let's just dive right into it. Now, for the widowed parent who uses duct tape and loose screws to build automatic turrets, the Sole Survivor would fit right in around the gangs and raiders of the Necromunda Underhive. Necromunda, however you say it. The real question is, do they climb the heap and become the king of the Underhive, or get torn apart by psychos in the sludge? Now, first off, Necromunda is not a faction or a character in 40k, but rather a very special place. There's a lot of special underhives in the world of 40k, cities beneath another city, run by gangsters and mobsters doing whatever they want, as long as the suits up top don't get ticked off enough to come down and dole out the Imperium's wrath. Now, Necromunda is special because it's one of the largest, most dangerous and violent underhives we know of. When the flagrant dumpster divers are the regular humans around, you know shit is fucked, because between warrior women and a clan of roided out meatheads that aren't quite ogre but get dangerously close, Necromunda demands a lot from the people trying to survive down in its depths. I'm realizing I'm going to be saying both versions of Necromunda throughout this. Just deal with it. But it's also not like the Sole Survivor is inexperienced here. At Nuka World, they got a series of psychos to bow under their will, creating a new world and effectively a small nation of raiders by offering favors, if not straight beating the clans into submission.
Be a good dog and do what you're told, or you'll be put down.
Oh there, boss. Not in front of my guys, alright?
So this is just more of that, but up to 11. Nuka World, but replace the animals with a gang made up exclusively of Frank Horrigans. But going toe-to-toe with a stim-jacked Goliath gang boss, or getting cornered by the techno-cultists of Van Sar, is a very different problem than yelling at some raiders in leather jackets. Very much like in Nuka World, the way the survivor approaches each gang will dramatically change the outlook on everything that comes after. For Goliath, they have to come with raw power. With the techies, they might want to try to do some bartering. For the psychos, maybe a little focused calling would be the best approach. There's also going to be a big difference in gear. Sometimes the Sole Survivor wields a Fat Man, a handheld nuclear launcher. Sometimes it's a 9mm pistol with a silencer on it. Sometimes they're decked head to toe in power armor. But also, Fallout power armor is not that strong, at least in comparison to 40k. It's able to scoff at small arms fire and especially durable against laser weaponry, but anything more than a 45 is putting a decent dent in it, if not tearing through the steel of even a T-51 suit. The real advantage to power armor is that it's like a wearable forklift. You can shoot the tank on a forklift real easy. Yeah, it's not super built for warfare, but it means that one person could do more than 10 easily. Power armor is the same. Rather than needing a team of 2 or 3 soldiers to mount and fire miniguns or heavier ordnance, slap one private in their armor and let it rip, having them rely on overwhelming firepower rather than defensive or tactical superiority. And when you're up against regular humans, that's fantastic. And extra thankfully, nobody in Necromunda is normally as well equipped as your standard Astartes. Lasguns, autoguns, shotguns, and a few other specialties may prove difficult to withstand, but the sole survivor isn't having to worry about bolter fire or grav guns, anything crazy like that. Add on top of that, the survivor's seemingly unique aptitude towards building settlements that draw in new members and elicit a positive reaction from other wastelanders. It's possible that rather than fighting the other gangs of the Underhive, they'd simply begin to build their own, recruiting from all the others and carrying out a massive plot of land for themselves, slowly taking over the entire Underhive until no one can stand in their way. Like many of these matchups, it's kind of very plot dependent on how the sole survivor acts. Are they super brash and stupid? Are they an idiot savant? Or somebody who's really smart and tactical and able to basically outwit all of the gangers in Necromunda? But I'm gonna go to the description for this one. Let me know in the comments if you think the sole survivor, Nate, Nora, whatever it is, would be able to stand up to Necromunda, make their own gang, or just kind of get wiped out. Based on everything we see, especially with something like power armor, I think their chances are a lot better than not. Obviously, of course, if anything like a Inquisitor in power armor or an Astartes comes to say hello, is kind of fucked. But with that, let's move on. Now, I know nobody has paid any attention to Starfield since it came out, but as a fun little experiment, let's see how the space adventuring hero would do if they happened across the space pirates of 40k, the rogue traders. Now, the strength of traders can volley around a lot, from dinky space cruisers manned by a handful of men to vast empires of warships that could fire upon multiple fleets of Astartes at once and seemingly walk away unscathed. This did happen during the Horus Heresy, by the way. Rogue traders showed up, fired upon 2 Astartes fleets effectively at full power, and kind of just went on with their day. For today, though, we're going to be aiming more down the middle. The rogue traders with an impressive but singular warship. Now, the traders themselves are normally just special people with very wonderful permits that allow them to do basically whatever they want. Recruit Xenos, Space Marines, raise armies, as long as it can be excused as in the Imperium's favor, they can make the right deals, and if no Inquisitor squints too hard in their direction, the rogue traders don't really answer to anyone. That being said, they are still humans. Humans in 40k with maybe psychic abilities, cybernetic augments, and entourages of either Space Marines, various Xenos, and other soldiers, but still human. Now, the Starborn, the divine explorers connected to the fabric of reality, are also human, shootable, killable, but functionally immortal, jumping from one universe to an infinite number of others as they go. How it works exactly, we don't know. Starfield, as an IP, is fairly new and there's a lot of light lore around it. Perhaps they're moved to another universe just before death, the mechanic of dying in-game reflected as an in-universe ability. Maybe any other 100 of multiversal theories could apply. All we know for sure is that the Starborn is connected to the fabrics of space-time and will reappear in another nearly identical universe when defeated, meaning they can never truly die. The closest to this is like the Chaos Gods in 40k, where if you were somehow able to kill them, they would still exist in something like Age of Sigmar. Starborn works in a lot of the same ways. So, from the most basic technical standpoint, unless this is known and the Starborn is kept alive in a form of torture forever, right out the gate they can't technically lose, but instead quick save and launch endless attacks until they come out on top. Mathematically, the odds are just in their favor. But even if they had just one attempt, how would it go? To challenge a rogue trader, first they'd have to be enemies. For the Starborn, or Starfarer, the Starfield protagonist, there's a lot of stars, their ultimate goal is finding the artifacts that lead them to the Unity and allow them to become Starborn. So them teaming up with a spacefaring trader who probably would also have interest in bringing the Unity back to the Imperium is more likely than not, unless for some reason the Starborn had some issue with the Imperium's tactics, but they come from an RPG. Morals are flexible here. Ignore the fact that, like, all the companions force you to be a good guy, but aside from that. Now, let's say they are enemies. The Starborn has to find a way onto the rogue trader's warship and battle their way through to the captain. Through Psykers, Astartes, maybe an Eldar or two, some Votan, or even Tau, and don't forget the small private army. Now, we know the Starborn is human and at base level has some mystical connections to reality, but could they chew through a small armed force? Well, they do have some funky space powers. Just running down the list, they can create a space of anti-gravity, launching a wave of gravitational energy ahead of them, dashing with gravitational energy, precognition, pacifying all creatures around them, resurrecting aliens to make them fight alongside the Starborn, summoning a version of themselves from an alternate dimension, exploding with the force of a supernova, drain life from another creature and heal themselves with it, force an enemy to confront their literal demons, summoning a multiversal version of an enemy to fight themselves, remove all the oxygen from an area while creating a personal atmosphere around themselves, slowing the speed of time around you, and like a particle beam from their face like they're Superman. Basically, space Dovahkiin. Now, these are incredibly busted powers even by 40k standards, with only some Eldar and Psykers even able to resist, if barely fight back. Doesn't matter how strong the Psyker is if the air is sucked from their lungs and they're blasted with a local supernova, or just facing an evil, bizarro version of themselves who's just gonna blast them right back. And all these powers have no connection to the warp, so while the Eldar fear Slaanesh grabbing their souls and the Psykers have to control themselves, the Starborn can kind of just let this one rip one after another. Now, if they really suck at fighting, sure, it doesn't matter how strong your ability to lob supernovas is if you just get shot, but you'd have to shoot them first. And the standard kit of a Starborn could easily be a particle rifle with air superiority in the form of a jetpack. They have a small army to get through, but aside from one or two challengers that aren't even the trader themselves, the Starborn does have the wackiness of video game protagonists in their corner, helping them chew through a few hundred, if not 1,000, regular guardsmen with laser rifles, melting their flesh with supernova bombs or suffocating an entire room before doing even more. And again, that's by nerfing the Starborn to a single run. Mathematically, they couldn't lose. But okay, the Starborn works on wacky sci-fi video game bullshit. Alright, let's stack the deck in the trader's favor. The rogue trader commands a fleet of 20 warships, half a company of Deathwatch, and the aid of Eldar, Necron, and Orcs alike, somehow setting aside their differences for this one battle. They know the Starborn is coming, and they prepare accordingly. What can the Starborn do then? Well, they do have a logistical advantage. See, the ships in Starfield and Warhammer have one major difference: speed. In Warhammer, warships are a lot like the naval vessels of the 17th century, with rogue traders reflecting a sort of sci-fi variant on the traders who worked for the East India Company. They're massive, dangerous warships, but flying through the warp is hard and can take months, if not years, meaning ships are lost at sea or damaged in the process. For the Starborn, spaceflight is instant. 1 minute they're orbiting Earth, the next they're hanging around Alpha Centauri. Even though the Starborn ship is infinitely smaller and weaker by every metric, Their ability to outspeed nearly everything in the 40k galaxy and dart around from place to place would make the Starborn a very special type of rogue trader all within themselves. They end up becoming the thing they're fighting, but better. In a matter of years, it wouldn't be sci-fi soldier versus a small army, but fleet versus fleet. Just so happens that the leader of one fleet is also a demigod and gets an infinite number of chances of retrying each time they fail. I'll be honest, this matchup was one I only really made because both the Dragonborn and Russ have the Viking thing going on. I initially wanted to do something for the dragons in Age of Sigmar, because, it's still Warhammer, but AOS is so sparse on lore compared to 40k that it felt like I'd basically be guessing. And the dragons of 40k get taken out by unarmored space marines, so comparing them to a demigod who eats dragon souls felt a little weak. Now, first up, the Dragonborn is the only protagonist that doesn't have to be human. Opting for Lizard, Khajiit, or Elf, and then landing on Fenris would probably see the Herald of Skyrim shot on sight. Now, if human in their origin, the Dragonborn may be seen as another child of the Space Wolf's homeworld, and with powers derived from their godly heritage, the Dragonborn would fit right in with the Rune Priests, their powers and shouts a gift from the gods rather than psychic ability. Obviously, with how physically adept the Dragonborn is, them, if choosing to do so, becoming an Astartes that blows away greater demons with their voice is not out of the question. A space marine who could stall time with a whisper, run greater than reality should allow, and devour the souls of dragons if they ever make a detour to Nocturne. With the rampant devouring of cheese wheels by the pound and wine by the gallons, the Dragonborn would fit right in alongside the Space Wolves and actually become a hero of their chapter. Already prophetic with martial weapons before being given a gun, the Dragonborn wielding power armor and a bolter would be disastrous for anyone that goes against them. Like a super ultra powerful stealth archer build. And while the idea of that is very cool, that's not what we came here for. So, whether Astartes are simply adorned with their regular armor, could the one they fear wrestle with the blade of Fenris? As they are, with skills maxed to the gills, and literally a master of all forms of combat in the lands of Tamriel, the Dragonborn could challenge most, if not all, mortal fighters to a duel and walk out without a scratch. So dexterous they could steal the clothes off your back without you knowing. So sneaky you'd lose sight of them while making eye contact. And so strong that the heaviest of armors feel like nothing more than a second skin to them. With a spoken word, they can drag time to a crawl, force others to bend beneath their voice, and send most creatures flying. Another shout makes them invulnerable to damage for a short time. They can make their enemies disarm themselves, instill fear in them, breathe fire and ice. In short, a lot of fuck-ass crazy things. The biggest issue with the Dragonborn against Leman Russ is that their equipment is quite literally outdated. No matter their strength, I'm not sure any of the regular weapons in Skyrim could hold up to Ceramite. Or so you'd think, because the Dovahkiin also has Daedric armor. In the lands of Tamriel, this is often made of ebony, said to be the toughest material in the lands when forged correctly. A type of ceramic glass made from the blood of gods, not dissimilar from ceramite steel, but even further infused with the soul of a demon, the Daedra. Think of a space marine having their ceramite steel infused with a warp demon to make them stronger, but rather than being possessed by said demon, the last Dragonborn is trapping the demon within said armor and forcing it to protect themselves. And same goes for their weapons, magical demon-infused equipment forged for one purpose, violence, and they are compelled to follow that order. Now, comparing one made-up armor to another fantastical god blood armor is a fool's task. We just have no frame of reference, nor enough reference for how strong these would be in comparison. But since they're both magically enhanced and feature ceramic qualities, we'll call it even. But the more important question will be less about armor and equipment then, and more to the effects of skills. Leman Russ, who freezes those that stand around him, who went blow for blow with Magnus and even Horus Lupercal, who beheaded a Titan and can slay Astartes with ease, the Emperor's executioner. And the last Dragonborn, a dragon soul within the body of a human, killing the World Eater Alduin, an aspect of death, a timeless and immortal Dova who cannot be slain except by another exceptionally powerful dragon soul, which is what allows the Dovahkiin to take him on to begin with. Dragons in Elder Scrolls are not that different from Warhammer's demon princes. Timeless, deathless beings inherently tied to reality. So as a rough kind of analog, imagine a human with the soul of a demon who carries the ability to permanently kill demons, then tracking down the oldest, most powerful of all these timeless demons and ending them. That's the Warhammer equivalent to the Dragonborn story. Now, you might think that this gives Leman a leg up because of his anti-warp aura that even made Magnus struggle to hold eye contact, but no. While the mechanics are similar, dragons do not come from the warp. The magic that the Dragonborn calls upon is not psychic or derived from the warp, in which Leman is able to shut away. So magically speaking, the two are on fairly equal levels, if not the Dragonborn squeaking way ahead with shouts that change reality and conjurations that can't be shut off by Russ's mental tricks. And the only abilities Russ brings are all ice-based, the kind of elemental powers that the snow-faring Dragonborn could shrug off if not use themselves, with a similar frost breath to use right in return. Speed and combat ability is going to determine the biggest gap between these two. And truthfully, we're comparing an overpowered video game protagonist to an overpowered Primarch. Russ, who is said to move so fast he leaves an afterimage. The Dragonborn, who can move faster than anything the Nords of Skyrim have ever seen, and then doubly so can slow time down with their words, bringing even Russ to a halt. And that, to be honest, seems to be the most useful ability in the Battle of Blades we have before us. If Leman is outsped by a magic user who isn't dependent on the warp, he's walking into a fight with the most powerful demon prince of dragonkind, and may not be walking out. I could really see this one going either way and find it really hard to be convinced one way or the other, so let me know down below who you think is going to be walking out with the victory on this one in the comments. Maybe we settle this by democratic vote, just one word. Dovahkiin or Leman Russ. 2 words, but you know what I mean. Personally, I just feel like stopping time and stabbing Russ through the skull with a blade that had a demon forced into it and wants nothing to do but kill would actually put the Dragonborn on top. But that's gonna draw our Bethesda comparison to a close. Let me know what you thought down below, what or who you would like to see next, and subscribe so you don't miss it. Also, let me know if you guys actually want to see stuff being compared to other things than Warhammer 40k. I've seen a lot of stuff of people asking for things I've either covered before, or things in the future to be covered against other franchises that aren't Warhammer 40k. I always just tend to come to 40k as a sort of benchmark, because it's familiar and popular, but if you'd really like to see a different matchup or a different pairing, let me know. Be loud about it, so I know what to do going forward with, the kinds of videos that this is. But as always, another great thank you to my members and patrons who you can join for just $1 to get early access to all my videos, some behind the scenes perks, and even ask some questions to be answered and displayed in my videos. But with that, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.